Vivek, people are coming in. If you want to sort of start hellos and highs and whatever, carry on.
Hi, good evening, everyone. We'll just wait for a couple of minutes. We'll let everybody in. Thank you for coming on time, Abhishek, Manish, Margaret, Sanadeep, Sangeeta, Shivdas. People are still coming in. Preeti, will just give another minute and we'll start.
So thank you, people. As you can see, we are all sort of getting up and getting ready for you guys. Just give it a couple more minutes. Marcus is all right there. He's had his dinner a little bit. Then he's going to go back and have some more. Vivek and me are ready. It's just a matter of just a couple more minutes and we are good to go. Remember, this session is for you people. So please be communicative. Write down your questions and comments into the question answer box. This is a heads up. Some of you might get lucky and get to do a voice interaction with Marcus today. So please make sure that you are ready with those questions because you never know. You might be the one asking that question yourself. And if some of you are daring enough, you can go and get chained now because there might be a possibility that we might pull one of you up or a couple of you up into the video and you can ask Marcus your question directly. So with that, I think, Vivek, it is over to you, my dear friend. Let's get the evening rolling and let's get this thing started. Over to you, Vivek. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Preeti. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to all of you today. It gives me immense pleasure to launch the next edition of LILIndia Local India online. The theme for today is psychological and emotional well-being. My name is Vivek Chadha, and I, along with Preeti Chaudhary, will be a host for today. We have a very special guest with us today, Dr. Marcus Ranney. Marcus is the General Manager India for Thrive Global, a US-based behavior change technology and media company founded by Ariana Huffington. He completed his Bachelor's of Science and Medical degrees from University College Medical School in London. Post that, he served as a medical officer in the Royal Air Force and at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. Published author, a keynote speaker, a public health commenter, and in 2013, the World Economic Forum appointed him as a global shaper. A champion of well-being, Marcus is a big believer that sustainably improving the lives of billions of people across the world over can be brought about by enhancing the positive aspects of health rather than focusing solely on pathogenesis and disease. Marcus is a keen athlete and long-distance marathon runner, and very interestingly, he holds a Guinness World Record for backward running. Marcus didn't know that. Thank you, Marcus, for joining us today. And I thank all the audience for coming and participating in the next edition of LILIndia Local India online, and hope that you derive immense value from the same. For the questions, please keep them ready and put them in the chat box that you see at the bottom of the screens. As Preeti mentioned, you'll have an opportunity to discuss with Marcus. The early three questions will get an opportunity live to ask Marcus. So without much further ado, I request Preeti to introduce LILIndia Local to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Vivek. And hello and good evening, Marcus and my dear friends. LinkedIn Local India is all about community, connection, and collaboration. It is a LinkedIn property wherein we get together to learn from each other in a physical form. But that was before the onset of this pandemic. With the enforced circumstances that we are in now, everything has moved virtually, which means here we are in this knowledge share session, but virtually together with each other. So that is what LinkedIn Local is all about. A little bit from me about our very dear guest, Dr. Marcus Ranney. Vivek has gone on to talk to about the professional that Marcus is. I am going to be talking and touching upon a little bit more on the kind of human that Marcus is. So first of all, thank you, Marcus, for doing whatever you're doing in the front line at Bombay. I know I have seen you go around holding screening camps with the BMC and otherwise. I've seen you do lots of other work that makes immense and tremendous impact onto the lowest of the low people. That is the oath that you took when you became a doctor, and all of us here are very thankful and grateful to you for carrying that forward. Along with that, I know you are a man who is passionate about many things, as Vivek has already said. And I also know you as someone that takes pleasures out of the small things in life, so whether it is a trek in the nature, whether it is just taking the car and driving out, you find those little gems and pieces of solace or comfort, and you do not have to go all out. You find them in small things around you. I think that is a tremendous quality that all of us could imbibe from and aspire to ourselves in these very difficult times. So, thank you very much for everything, Marcus, for inspiring us, for day in and day out doing your job, guiding people, talking to them, and anything and everything in your power to make our life that much better. With that, may I request you to please talk to us a little bit more about psychological well-being, emotional well-being. What can one do to keep sane in this kind of a situation and environment? From your day in and day out of dealing with people, the kind of challenges that all of us are facing, any and every of your insight is very welcome. It's over to you, Marcus. Thank you very much for these gems and these pearls of wisdom that I personally am looking forward to. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, both of you, for having me today. Once again, I mean, such a big fan of LinkedIn and all the work that you guys are doing with these communities. So I was more than happy to come back again and spend this time with you all. For all of you joining in, thank you so much. I know I've got some friends who are on here. Margot is signed in from Hong Kong, and other parts of the world are also signing in. So it's very, very grateful for you to be here. And the conversation that I'd like to have with each of you today, once we've headlined it as emotional and psychological well-being, is really about self-care. And I want to propose to each of you listening that self-care and self-love is not selfish. You see, for a lot of us, we go through our lives wearing a variety of different masks. We have a mask at home, we have a mask for work, we have a mask when we're with our friends. And we tend to have this cape of invincibility that we try and wear, as we probably have that tune playing in our head that we are superheroes and that we need to look after everyone around us, whether it's our children or our parents, or look after our teammates, our colleagues, people in other parts of our society, etc. But the honest actuality of the way that, this body at least is designed and the way that we can energize it is through a very simple message that so many of us have heard, literally thousands of times, at least before COVID. And that was whenever the aircraft was taxiing itself to the runway for takeoff, which was the message from the captain, which is put your oxygen mask on first before trying to help others. And there's a lot of science in that. It's not just something about doing a good deed or them trying to say that, be selfish. It's that if you do not put the oxygen mask on first, if you cannot fuel your body from within, particularly when you're in an emergency situation, you will not have the strength, the resilience, the ability to extend a hand to help anyone else around you. And so the fallacy which we've sort of grown up with, particularly as leaders, as we ascend that totem pole towards the apex, is that we increasingly have to take care of everyone around us and carry them with us on our shoulders. But actually the science is a little bit converse to that. As I said, it's about suggesting that first we look after ourselves, we look at self-leadership, and then we extend our hand to help anyone else around us. Now, the point about self-care is that there are three things that I wanted to talk about. Number one is that it's very deliberate. So self-care is not something that you just chance upon in life. It is a process, a framework that you need to build around you. And maybe when we get into the question and answers, we can talk about what those frameworks could look like. But they're frameworks that you need to construct around you so that you have the time, the energy, the resources to be dedicated towards putting back some investment into yourself. So it's deliberate in nature. The second thing is the word that I mentioned. It's an investment. You have to look after yourself in order for you to get something out of it at the other end. And the analogy that I quite often talk about is this one about corporate athletes. So if I asked any of you to think about a cricketer like Sachin Tendulkar or a boxer like Mary Kom, and you think about, what would their day look like? Typically, they'd wake up pretty early, I would imagine. They would then get on to having something to eat and then probably do some stretching exercise or core training exercises, etc. They then have another another meal to eat, and then they'd go out and practice their discipline, whether it's in the nets or in the boxing ring, etc. And then, they'd take a little bit of a break, they'd have lunch, they maybe go back out for another training session, and then they'd wrap up by about 4 or 5 o'clock. They'd spend time with their kids, they'd spend time talking to their coach, they'd spend time reading or learning about their particular discipline, etc. And quite often you'll also then find them clocking in pretty early at night. By 8:30, 9 p.m., it's usually lights out, especially in match season or game season, so that they have that recovery. And so for an athlete who has the opportunity to explode in the sporting arena, he or she, both of them who are at the pinnacle of their game, have the appreciation that rest, recovery, and rejuvenation is all part of this framework that allows me to achieve my level of peak performance. But for us as corporate athletes, people who do this job, the same job sometimes, day in and day out, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week for 10 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours a day, sometimes longer. How many of us, number one, have the appreciation that there is a body, a mind, a heart, and a spiritual self that needs to be invested in? And how many of us has the appreciation that rest, recovery, and rejuvenation is critical to our ability to perform? You see, it's not well-being versus performance. Well-being is the foundation upon which performance is then stacked up and built up. And so I want to talk about 4 aspects of self-care, which are really fundamental and are really important for each of us to start to imbibe in our day-to-day lives. And they're really simple because most of it has been given to us freely by nature. The first one is sleep. Sleep is probably nature's most underappreciated, underutilized, performance-enhancing tool that we have available to us. We did a study a few years ago with an incredible basketball player by the name of Andre Iguodala. For those of you who don't know him, he plays for the San Francisco Warriors, and he won the MVP, the most valuable player. So in IPL terms, he would have won the orange cap or the purple cap a few years ago. And what we did with Andre is that we took his training schedule exactly as it was for the entire duration of a season. The only difference we made with him was that we changed the amount and the methodology by which he went to sleep, his rest component. That's the only component that we altered in the entire season. And the results were outstanding. He had a 29% increase in the number of minutes that he was able to play over the entire season per game. He had a 45% reduction in his fouls. He had a 11 or 12% increase in his 3-point conversion rate. And so what we were beginning to see, and there's a whole lot more science, and you can check it out on our website as well, is that not only were the positive attributes of his game enhanced, but the negative attributes were reduced. And something as simple as altering the amount of time that he slept and the way that he structured his sleep between games and throughout the season led to these transformative changes. And you just think about yourself as a leader. If you as a manager or you as a leader were told that I have a tool available to you that will enhance the productivity and the performance of your team by 29%, how many people would go and do that? Can you imagine a third more productive and performance? And it's as simple as ensuring that your team gets at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night. Many, many more reasons why sleep is important. And we can talk about that later as well. So that's sleep. The second thing is fueling the body. So I've been captivated by this machine that we have, this biological machine that's been given to us by nature, and the methodology by which it's evolved to be able to perform. It adapts and performs and excels under different mechanisms. And the analogy that I like to quote is that if I have a petrol car and I decide to one day take it to the gas pump, and instead of filling it with petrol, I start putting diesel inside, or even try and connect the electric wire if I'm lucky enough to have an EV and there's a charging station. What do you think would happen to the engine? What do you think would happen to its ability to perform, its output, i.e. move something from A to B? With pretty much zero, right? In the same way, this machine that we have, that nature has given to us, how many of us appreciate that we need to fuel it properly in order for its output to be achieved at the highest level of success that we want to allow it to achieve? And it's so simple. There are some very interesting studies that have been done. A 1% drop in dehydration leads to a 12% drop in productivity and performance. Right? Now, when you think about it, the thirst reflex that we have only kicks in when we're about 2 to 3% dehydrated. And the reason it does so is because 72% to 75% of your body is composed of water. So we're practically water just sloshing around. We've just got some skin and bones that are keeping everything together. And so as little as a 1% drop can make that huge difference in productivity. But how many of us actually move around the house like I do and ensure that you have your water bottle with you? Because it genuinely leads to a more productive and a higher performance state. In the same way, the food that you eat, the time you eat a day, I know Preeti was sort of joking when she mentioned that I'd already eaten dinner, but it's true. I structure my meals in a way that I try and ensure that I'm done by 7:15, 7:30, because your body requires those 2 to 3 hours of digestion before you go to sleep. And there's so much science out there which is readily available that will talk about the importance of what you put into your body, how mindful you are about when you consume it, and the output that it can create as well. So fueling is the second piece of self-care, which is really, really easy and important to do. The third is the power of movement, right? We've been designed to be locomotive animals. We've got 2 legs for a reason. It's to propel us moving forward. If we don't move, we just grow larger and not in a good way. And we get a whole host of chronic diseases which then develop as well. And the adage, which is now very nicely been coined by the media, is sitting is the new smoking. It's precisely why you find me standing here in front of you today, because for so many of us, we've gotten so used to just sitting at our desks and working. And unfortunately, by sitting just 6 hours every day, you reduce the amount of healthy life that you have available to you by 7 years. That doesn't mean your lifespan reduces by 7 years. Your healthy life, your disease-free life is reduced by 7 years just by sitting for 6 hours a day. And it gets more complicated. Even if you're someone who does exercise and move for 20 to 30 minutes a day as recommended by the WHO, if you then follow that up by just sitting for 6 to 9 hours every day, you've completely negated the beneficial impact of your movement and exercise. So you need to make sure that you're getting up, that you're moving, especially now in the lockdown period, because we're either, like I am right now, working from the bedroom because my kids are having dinner outside, or you're sitting on your sofa. You know, we're just in ergonomically compromised positions that's leading to a lot of stiffness, muscle tightness, etc. So we got to make sure that we're stepping up, that we're moving, that we're stretching, etc., etc. So that's the third piece. And the fourth, really, really easy piece, it's the power of the breath. So when one thinks about the nervous system that we have a nervous system which is under conscious control, and we have that which is under unconscious control, i.e. the autonomic nervous system. And that too is divided into 2. The sympathetic nervous system, which we're going to talk about next, which is the mechanism that drives stress, and the parasympathetic nervous system that leads to rest and recovery. And the vagus nerve is the part of that system that really accentuates it. And the power of the breath, by just simply taking a breath in and out, you actually activate the vagus nerve, you suppress the secretion of cortisol and adrenaline in your body, you actually reduce your heart rate just by activating the vagus nerve from 100 to 70 beats per minute. And it's a very powerful tool for taking control of stress and anxiety in your life. And the ability to box breathe, which is breathe in for 4 counts, hold for 4 counts, breathe out for 4 counts, and repeat that cycle 4 times. It takes less than 30 seconds. And a very, very interesting study, which was done by Harvard, showed that for people who did this for as little as 6 weeks, were able to expand the area in the hippocampus, which is the part of the brain which is responsible for memory and learning, by up to 31%. So it's a very powerful way. Just imagine, just breathing can make you better at your memory when it's done consciously and mindfully as well. So these are the 4 foundational aspects of self-care: sleep, fueling the body, moving the body, and finally meditation / mindfulness / breath. And the reason why these are so important right now is that they enhance our resilience. Resilience is the recognition of a harmful or a stressful environment, and being aware to then produce the appropriate response to then deal with that. And all of the things that I've spoken to you about will build up that inner battery that you have inside of you, so that when you are faced with a particularly dangerous or uncertain or stressful situation, you are able to overcome that. The last thing I want to talk about is stress. We all have so much stress in our lives right now, fueled by the media, by the way. Lots and lots of negativity and uncertainty, which is projected by the media. But understandably, if you just think about the last 4 months, so I'm talking to you right now from Mumbai, from Bombay in India. And in the last 4 months, we've obviously been dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. We've had 2 stock market crashes, and who knows how many more sort of economic catastrophes to follow through bankruptcies, etc. We had a cyclone batter the west coast of India. In fact, we even had one on the east coast of India a few months prior to that. We have a war with our nearest neighbor in the northeast with China. We've had TikTok that has been banned, which has just fueled all kinds. I know Microsoft, which is the parent company of LinkedIn, is looking to buy that. But this just created all kinds of stress and anxiety in our lives. And the list goes on and on and on. And so 2020 is a year of resilience, but it's also the year of optimism and hope. And I want to end this particular piece on hope, because I fundamentally believe that the reality which exists in front of us is a framework for which we project from the inside out. We can choose for life to be a glass half empty. We can choose for a life to be a glass half full. We can alternatively choose to reimagine what else we can put into that glass to make it even more enjoyable. And that's how I like to think about the way that I live my life, finding the simple, small pleasures in every particular experience that we have around us, and the power of reframing the situation, of identifying the beauty in that particular challenge that we have, and making it into an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to become a better person. That is ultimately what we are all here on this planet for. So I'll leave us with that. We've got another sort of 15, 20 minutes. I'll be very happy to take questions and sort of deep dive into any of the topics that I've spoken about. Thank you, Preeti.
All right, thank you, Marcus. Great points and very, very valid. We know a few of them, but I think many of us do not, follow them through. But some new insights. Thank you very much for that. We have a couple of questions that have come in. Rafiq, if you want, I can have you. I'll give you the voice so that you can ask the question yourself. Give me a second. Rafiq, you can unmute yourself and ask the question, please.
Hi, Marcus.
Hi, Rafiq. How are you? Good to see you.
I'm on top of the world. How are things otherwise with you?
Superb. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. So my question was, like, many employees are using this time to reimagine their approach towards their employee mental health.
Yeah.
But not everyone are expert in doing that, or they don't have a good team to help them in terms of steering towards that mission. So I want to know what kind of a way forward strategy, where as a wellness consultant or an employee benefit consultant, where we can tell them, okay, this is what the way forward strategy to ensure that your employee mental health is taken care of.
Okay, that's a really interesting question, and let me maybe answer in a couple of ways. I think the first thing is to be really appreciative of is to understand that mental health, well-being exists on a spectrum, and that each of us sort of dip in and out of that spectrum at some point in our working and personal lives as well. So we have mood fluctuations, we have tendencies towards becoming maybe a little depressed at one time, a little manic at the other, etc., etc. And the important thing for people to recognize is that a lot of that is just part of the day-to-day healthy colors of life. If I did not express or experience sorrow, I would never be able to be in a position to really get the amazing benefits of joy, right? So we can't always be in a joyous state. We can't always be in a happy state. It's important for us all to experience all of these different flavors. Now, when we're constructing a program, it's therefore important to understand, are we addressing the mental disease side of the paradigm, or are we focusing our efforts on the sort of lifestyle / well-being components? And the interventions are very different. In the first one, you might opt for a professional counselor, like a psychiatrist, a psychologist, etc. On the other one, you may opt for a facilitator, a life coach, or someone else who from a psychological training perspective who can come in and do that. So that's the first sort of framework to understand, like which area of the spectrum are we dedicating our energies towards. The second area, which is really important, and it cuts down from both of these, is that there are certain foundational elements upon which focus needs to be given, irrespective of whether you're just focusing on one part or the other, which is why even in the talk that I had given a little earlier here on self-care, I still put energy on sleep, I still put energy on fuel, I still put energy on movement, etc. And so it's very important, and it's a very easy trap for people to fall into with their structuring a program with, say, a counselor, and they've got a helpline that people can just call and talk about their mood. But if you're not also helping your employees, sorry, this pop-up has come up. Yeah. If you're not also helping your employees sleep better, detox from technology, create the right boundaries in their work, deal with their relationships that they have with their managers, the people they report into or get reported into, you're just going to fuel the same cycle over and over again. It's like putting a band-aid over a crack rather than fixing the actual root cause as well. So that's the second really important piece. And the last, when it comes to behavior change, is the understanding that behavior change is very complex. You need the intervention to be provided, you need the information to be given, and you need to meet that person where they want to be met in a very sustainable manner. That's why at Thrive, we talk about this technique called the micro step. So we take a large behavior, we distill it down into really small actions that people can do on a day-to-day basis, so that you can be successful in getting change rather than just trying to run a marathon in the first place.
All right, thank you, Marcus. So, Rafiq, I hope that answers your question. Okay, great. So we have a couple of questions from Manish Anand. Manish, I'm going to give you the voice. Please ask your questions. Please unmute yourself.
Good evening, Dr. Marcus. Are you able to hear me?
I can hear you very well, Manish. Go ahead.
Okay. Incidentally, I'm walking on the top of my house on the rooftop in the evening, and we are listening to this lovely talk about wellness. And I'm walking on the rooftop not because I am a physical activity enthusiast, but because my wife pushed me out and told me, you better, make yourself more active, and instead of sitting on the couch and listening to webinars. Okay, so what I wanted to ask you was that you talked about sleep, and
Yes.
a good, longish sleep of 8 hours in a 24-hour cycle is. We feel that after those 8 hours of good nap, then we have a longish working cycle of 16 hours. So instead of having a 8 hours cycle, sleep cycle, is it not a good idea to have a shorter nap cycle, like 2 hours, then, after a gap, 6 hours, and then after a gap, another 2 hours? So which is a better, recommendation?
You ask a very interesting question, and the reason it's so interesting is because there are elements of history, of biology, and of culture which are indicated in that particular response. If you look back through human evolution and how our ancestors across different types of cultures, I would add, developed their sleep-wake cycle, typically human beings were biphasic in our sleep response. We would have, as you described, we would have about 6 hours of sleep. We would then wake up around 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. They would then practice sort of spirituality, cultural elements, art, creation of things, etc. They would go back to sleep again in the early hours in the morning, and then they would wake up again. So there were these two particular patterns of sleep-wake cycles that were seen. And it was really the advent of the electric bulb which brought in this work shift-based pattern that we're now so used to seeing, that led to human beings moving away from that biphasic approach towards this single sleep pattern and then be awake for a prolonged period of time. Now, when you look at, so that's the sort of historical cultural context to do with that. Now let's look at some of the biology. So sleep is not an equal, it's not an equal input variable all the way through. By that, what I mean is that we've all heard that there are two distinct phases of sleep. There's REM sleep, which is rapid eye movement, and then there's non-REM sleep. Well, actually, there are 4 parts of sleep. There's phase 1, 2, 3, 4. There are different things that happen in each of those different phases, and they each last for different periods of time. So phase 3 and phase 4 are the most important components for us, where we get the maximum amount of physiological benefit. And phase 4 is that REM component, rapid eye movement of sleep, which is where we dream and which where the maximum benefit occurs. Now, unfortunately, when you fall asleep, you do not go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then cycle again 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not a linear relationship. You'll have 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4, 4, 1, etc. That's sort of the pattern that builds. And so if you're someone who is restricting your sleep to say 4 hours a night versus sleeping just 6 hours a night or 8 hours a night, then what happens is the amount of time that you spend in phases 3 and 4, which I said are the most important phases where we get the biggest physiological benefit, is significantly reduced versus other people. And so you will do yourself a hindrance. Now, of course, the biology is very clever. We have developed ways to compensate for that, and power naps is a very, very powerful way. I'm a big component of that. I almost power nap now every single day, especially in lockdown and the fact that we're working from home. So it makes it easy for 20 minutes to 40 minutes, whatever that natural requirement is. And that can add a lot of benefit to your day to give you a second wind for the second half of the day. But it's important, therefore, just to sum everything up, that you do not try and shrink that 8 hours into, say, 4 blocks of 2. You will not get the physiological benefits that's required. You need at least one largish block of 6 hours, 7 hours, and then you can top that up. You can top up to your 9 hours, or by having a series of sort of power naps or rest or meditation. Meditation, by the way, is also a surrogate for sleep because you're moving your brain waves from alpha to theta. So it is a surrogate for sleeping, etc. So I hope, Manish, that sort of answers your question.
Oh, yes, it does. Thank you very much. Very well explained. Thank you.
Thank you.
Manish, you had one more question. Oh, okay. Right. So it's time now for the next question. And I think we'll take up Sri Vidya here. No, sorry, Shivdas Rao. Shivdas?
Yeah. Just
Vivek,
again,
if you could please help bring up Shivdas.
yeah, on.
Shivdas, if you can unmute yourself, please. Your question is also related to sleep. So go ahead, right here. Please unmute yourself and ask away, Shivdas.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes,
I can.
Loud and clear.
Go ahead.
Fantastic. Dr. Marcus, thank you very much. Okay. So my question was also to do with sleep. I think so some of it you answered. So my question directly is to, you said it's not linear. It's not necessary that even I sleep for 8 hours, I don't know how much of phase 3 and phase 4 I'm actually getting. And that seems to be the most beneficial one for me, right? So how do I try and do it such that, I may be sleeping 6 to 8 hours, but if I want to get more of phase 3 and phase 4, get into that deep REM sleep, what are good ways to do that?
Yeah. Okay. So basically, you're asking how do you improve the efficiency and the experience of the sleep cycle? And quite often, when
Yeah.
people think about sleep, they limit their thought to just the sleep activity. But actually, it's sleep is a journey. It begins about 2 hours before you even go to bed, and it ends about 45 to 60 minutes after you wake up. Both of those periods of time are very important to the overall sleep experience as well. So let me give you some micro steps to help you improve and enhance your sleep experience by dealing with all three phases: the pre-sleep, the during sleep, and the after sleep as well. Before you go to sleep, you have to condition your body to get ready for the sleep activity. Just like we were doing any other activity, we need to warm up, we need to condition itself. And so the same way you need to do this. So you need to start entering into a relaxation mode. So one of the easiest ways of doing this is to actually develop a routine. Our body does best when it recognizes a particular routine based upon which, like the circadian rhythm, the internal physiological processes can then start firing. So if you can start to develop a particular time that you know you're going to go to sleep. So like for me, it's always around 10 p.m. I know I start, assuming I eat dinner on time, I start winding down from about 8 p.m. We spend time with the kids. We put the kids to sleep. We then read. My wife and I spend some time talking. Then we come to the bedroom, read, etc. And then the sleep occurs. So your body needs to get used to that sort of wind down phase of relaxation so that the necessary hormones can start to kick in at the right time. So number one is creating a routine. Then there are some things you should definitely not be doing before you go to sleep, and particularly 2 hours prior. And the biggest one right now is consuming media, particularly news. Those news channels where they've got 10 panelists and that one guy, I won't say his name, you know, the guy with glasses who's just shouting at the top of his voice. All he's doing is he's raising everyone's adrenaline and cortisol, which is the worst thing you want to be doing before you go to sleep. That's not the frame of mind of peace, of relaxation that you want to be happening inside your cerebral hemispheres before you go to sleep. So have a news cutoff, particularly, actually, I just say consume the news in the morning, only for 15 minutes, only from trusted sources, and only aspects that you actually need to know, which will impact your life, right? Everything else is superfluous in this world. We don't require it. So don't consume it towards the tail end of the day, and particularly in the 2 hours that you're going to then wind down. It goes the same for screen time. Try and avoid screen time. If you are going to watch something on Netflix, and a lot of us have built that into our schedule now, try and watch something which is happy, uplifting, joyous, you learn, just something that fuels and feeds the body and soul, rather than it being this horrendous horror movie or, some weird storyline which just keeps your mind just going over and over again. And look, by the way, Reed Hastings, the CEO of Netflix, has himself said that his biggest competitor in life is sleep. It's not the other OTT platforms, and it's just designed around that. So that's the second other micro step. And then there are a couple of really other simple things. We have a rule in this house: no digital devices in the bedroom. So we escort our phones and we plug it into charge into another room so that we can charge our batteries and sleep in this room while our phone charges its batteries in another room. Gratitude is a very powerful mechanism, because the right temporoparietal lobe, which is where gratitude is expressed, is fundamentally different to where negativity and uncertainty resides. So by expressing gratitude, you're rerouting neuronal energy away from negative to positive. And so what I do is I use a technique called habit stacking, where when I brush my teeth at night, I think about 3 things that I'm most grateful for the day. And therefore I'm put into a really happy moment just before I then go to sleep. It's a very powerful and easy way to construct that. So these are little micro steps before you go to sleep, which will influence when you are in sleep mode. Now, what can you do when you're in sleep mode? I'll give you a few. Dark rooms. The darker the room, the better. All those little lights, particularly those hotel rooms, there's this horrible game that we used to play where you'd have to find all the tiny lights in the room and figure out which switch does what. Luckily in our bedrooms, we understand that, but try and keep it as dark as possible. Otherwise, just use a set of those eye masks that they used to give us on the aeroplanes. Temperature is important. So temperature between 19 and 21 degrees Celsius is an optimal band to be sleeping in, as far as our physiology is concerned. And there is actually a lot of science in the type of pillow, the weight of the quilt, the thickness of the sheets that you're sleeping with. There's actually a lot of science in that, and you can really go into as much detail as you want to in that. But the sleep experience, therefore, can be hacked with a few of these simple tricks and tips. And the last thing, which is when you wake up. Number one, do not rush straight to your mobile phone. That first 30 to 45 minutes of the day will influence the mood for the rest of the day. What you consume in that first 30 to 40 minutes will influence how you feel for the rest of the day. So if you want to enjoy some music, chant, listen to something which is, you know, spiritual or which feeds the soul, play with your kids, talk to your spouse about what's going to happen, eat something, you know, don't pick up the newspaper again, you know, just do things which are, you know, look out in nature, go for a walk, to do something which just fuels you rather than going straight into work mode, answering SMSs, emails, WhatsApp, etc. And if you look after each of these three phases, I promise you the quality of your sleep will be that much more than if you were just trying to move from 6 hours to 7 hours on its own.
Thank you very much for that very pertinent advice, Marcus. Before I pull on Rupinder for her next question, here's a little pointer for the attendees. Please, there's a poll running. If you could take 10 seconds of your time to address that, that would be nice. Rupinder, I am pulling you up for your next question. Please, if you can unmute yourself and ask that straight away. There you go, Rupinder.
Thank you, Dr. Marcus, for sharing your insights. It's been wonderful listening to you, as always.
Dr. Major, nice to see you.
I've removed both the titles from my LinkedIn profile. I don't know if you noticed it or not, and that's purposeful. So you can safely call me Rupinder without any heartburns out there. But yeah, you know, so I've been, actually my question was, what is your personal mantra of, you know, achieving that balance, which you actually shared towards the end of your talk. But if you could share also, you know, what is that keeps you going throughout the day? Because I know that, you know, you handle a lot of commitments yourself, you know, with regards to Thrive Global. And I always see a lot of energy in all that you bring across. So what is one personal mantra that you follow, let's say every day in the morning, which keeps you going throughout the day?
Okay, a beautiful question. Thank you for asking. I think the first piece of advice that I would mention is I don't look at my life in terms of balance. I actually look at my life in terms of harmony. I know it's a subtle word play, and I'd recently spoken about it on the, I think, the SHRM event. But harmony allows for tension to exist within the system, like Buddha's metaphor of the string, wherein when it is applied with a healthy amount of tension, it produces a beautiful note. Too little tension, it wobbles. Too much tension, it snaps. You see, my problem with balance, and I'm actually reading Shamal's book called Balance, and he's written about it really beautiful, Shamal Balapji, is that balance is equivalent to sort of an equitable distribution of credits, wherein I will distribute credits to work, to my personal life, to my professional life, to my exercise, etc., etc. And if I do that equitably and achieve this sort of magic golden ratio, then somehow I will be happy. But we don't exist like that. We have things which really fuel our energy, and there are things which drain us. And even though it's work, when we're engaged in something which fuels the energy, we get a lot more out of it. And I think it probably comes back to the second question that you were asking me as well. So that's a subtle sort of reframe that I have in my life. It's about what is it that I find harmonious, and what is, where do I find that energy? And by the way, that would involve cutting out something. So there are some aspects of my life that I do not do as much as I should do, because I'm investing myself in other parts, and it changes as you grow. So right now, of course, my son is just coming to the room here. So I spend a lot of time with my kids, and obviously with my home and my work and my reading and writing. And right now, I'm not getting the opportunity to go out there and be with my friends just because of the lockdown. I don't get an opportunity to see my parents and family as much, etc. So different parts of our lives involve different aspects of harmony, and it's important for us to recognize where we get that energy and what we want to commit ourselves to. So that's the first part. The second thing, and I think there are just two things that really fuel me, that provides me with the energy. I need to move every day. I love running. You know that about me. I love running. I love pushing my body as much as I can from a sort of movement and exercise perspective. So every day I carve out at least 60 minutes to move, to run, to cycle. In the old days, swim. I now do a lot of high intensity interval training, etc. But I need to do that because I need that dopamine. I need those endorphins. I need that oxygen pushing around, because it fuels a lot of me for the rest of the day. So I don't look at it as an hour lost. I look at it as actually, by me spending that 1 hour, I probably gain about 4 or 5 hours of healthy work time just by making that investment. So that's how I view that equation. The second, I've been fortunate to work from home now for coming up to, I think, 5 years odd. And it's a very purposeful construct that I'd created even before the lockdown started. And it allows me to spend as much time as I can with my kids. And particularly before, I used to be traveling a lot for work, giving talks, meeting clients, customers, etc. But at least when I was at home, when I was in Bombay, I could be with them, because truly I get, and I think anyone with children, who's had children or seen them grown up, or maybe they're older now, would know this. And so I get so much energy from them. And so I structure my day in such a way that I have a couple of hours of work in the morning. I then have 1 to 3 p.m. is always blocked off. That's just me time for the kids, have lunch together, have a nap together, play together. And then again, from about 5 to 6:30 p.m., again, that's a no working time for me. I spend time taking them down, playing with them, etc. So those little breaks through the day when I can spend with them allow me to come back and do more and give more of myself for these type of interactions.
Thank you. Lovely insights. And again, based on practical experience. So I'm sure very valuable. Our next question is from our friend Vivek Chadha, and I am just unmuting him now. So Vivek, if you could please unmute yourself and ask your question. Over to you, Vivek.
Thank you, Preeti, and good evening, Dr. Marcus. Pleasure hearing you. I'm hearing you the first time, but yes, it was a great talk by you. My question, yes, it's an obvious one, but generally we all have a shorter sleep cycles nowadays because of our busyness, which we have got into. But is there any specific don'ts which you will prescribe or will you subscribe that we should total know to have a good sleep? Because there are certain things which we do intentionally, which we can avoid.
I think the biggest one is devices in the room. There are many reasons why a device is hindrance to the sleep. The blue light that it emits, it suppresses the secretion of melatonin, which is our sleep hormone that's physiologically required for us to wind down. The vibrations that it gives off in the night, which subconsciously wake up, we reach out for the phone. We therefore disturb our phase 2 and phase 3 sleep cycles and wake up. As soon as we reach out for it, we unlock the phone, we open up WhatsApp, we may even go into the news or social media, etc. And all the problems of the world then get bombarded back to us, etc. So the single biggest change that I made actually when I joined Thrive and when Ariana asked me to launch the company was that I decided that I was going to physically do this as well at home. And I remember it was the day it happened in December 27th. It was Christmas time, and we said, okay, no more phones in the bedroom. And since then, my wife, we've never had a phone. We have a landline, those old dumb phones, MTNL lines that are available. So our family have it, our parents have it, so that if there is a medical emergency or any of her patients need to get hold of her, my wife's a doctor as well, then they can get hold of us. But otherwise, our phones are sleeping outside so that we can sleep nicely inside. That's the biggest tip that I can give you, is to escort your digital devices outside of your room so that you can have a great night's sleep.
Thank you very much for that. And blue light is a killer indeed, as we all know. But then creatures of habits, all the young ones, 18-year-olds up to the 25-year-olds, the mobile phone is inseparable, and that is what they take to bed nowadays, which is absolutely horrendously not a thing to do. So our dear friend VC here also has a question of his own. So it is over to him for the next question before I ask mine, and then we call it a good evening of sorts. Over to you, Vivek.
Sure. So my question, Marcus, is that irrespective of the knowledge that we have and additional points that you have given us, I have come to realize that no 2 days are the same. And however, how much I may prepare for the day, have a schedule, sometimes the day just goes up and down emotionally without me having the control. I would sometimes feel, not so motivated to do the work. So what are your tips in terms of, handling that and maybe, having a band which I can control more?
Great question. And it's so relevant for each of us. There are days where we all find ourselves in a state of flow. And there are days when no matter what we try and do, we cannot get the output that we want to achieve. And I think having the mindfulness to recognize the difference between those two and when they occur is very important. And I actually have a very simple rule. The day that, and I know it, when I wake up, sometimes I just know this is going to be one of those flow days. And I do everything that I can possibly in that particular day because it's just everything's clicking. If there's a day when I feel either under the weather or I'm feeling brain fog or just something that I'm not together with, I'm not too harsh on myself. Self-love and self-care is not selfish, right? So I tell myself it's okay for this day not to be as productive as what I would have hoped to do, because quite frankly, the rule of thumb, Parkinson's theorem, is that work will always expand to fill the time available to us. And we never achieve everything on our to-do list. If we have, that means the to-do list wasn't properly done in the first place. So, if there's a day that I recognize that my energy is low and I'm not going to be as productive, I do what I need to do. What's really, really urgent for me to do. I won't make any important strategic decisions unless they absolutely are necessary. And I just tell myself, it's okay, Marcus, I'm going to deal with this tomorrow, because I know that that day of productivity and flow is there. It's more often than not, it's there, particularly if I'm putting in all the self-care structures and routines in. So it's having that self-compassion, that self-empathy, that self-realization to focus when I can, and just be forgiving to myself when I can't.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Marcus, for that.
Thank you, Marcus. And my question, and I think all the women out here in the audience are going to resonate with that, because this is very important. Something culturally inbuilt in us is when we take time for ourselves, we get this guilty syndrome of what is it that we are doing? Are we even supposed to be doing this kind of a thing? So what is your advice to the women folk, which constitute the 50% of the population worldwide, that it is okay to take time for yourself, to be mindful of your own needs? Again, it is the oxygen mask theory that resonates with me. So please, your advice to the women folk out there, it is all right to take a break. Marcus.
You know that I'm very passionate about this subject. I've committed myself in many different arenas over the years to talk about the importance of, firstly, exactly this, about women not trying to always be the superhero and to allow themselves to indulge themselves and allow themselves the self-care and the self-love so that they can be as optimal and as amazing and as they possibly can be. I think that's so important. The second message, which I quite often talk about, is share the load. It's about us as partners, and I use that word very purposefully, the husband, the partner, the spouse in the house, to ensure that we are carrying our own weight. And you will often find me in the kitchen 3-4 days a week. I'm in the kitchen cooking our dinners for the kids and for each of us, etc. Because it's important. My wife works, and I love that about her. She is her best energetic self when she is at work. And I would never want anything to take away from that experience of her. But that would mean that I too have to contribute. And especially now when help is not readily available, look after the kids, look after the home, etc. So husbands and spouses need to be equal partners and share the load wherever needed. And the last thing is I wish we just had more women leaders. I think the world would be a much better place. I've had the great fortune of working for a woman boss now, Ariana Huffington, for so many years. And I can't tell you how amazing it's been, how much I've learned, the empathy that exists and the ability that's empowered us to then try and make that change in the world as well. And I wish it for many more organizations as well.
Thank you very much for those amazing insights, and absolutely spot on. If there is no inclusion, if there is no diversity, then everything goes for a toss. Also in wellness and also in psychological well-being. So thank you very much for those insights. Rafiq, there is an unanswered question by you, but please reach out to Dr. Marcus on LinkedIn and dive deeper into that particular ergonomics part of relation between anxiety and MSD. But today we have time enough for just this. With that, we are at the end of this wonderful and amazing evening of personal and professional insights by Dr. Marcus Ranney. It is from me, Preeti and Vivek here. Thank you very much to all the attendees. Hope you have taken the time to address that poll that we've launched earlier. Thank you to Marcus for being here and sharing his journey and stories time and time again with us. Gratitude and mere words can't be enough. But again, salute to your spirit of giving. So please continue to be amazing as you are. Couple of quick pointers for everybody in general. Tomorrow we have a diversity dialogue via LinkedIn Live at 7 p.m. with 4 amazing veteran women. So please come out at 7 p.m. Diverse views in terms of balancing work, home, being a veteran, and then following the passion. So with that, it is adios until next time from all of us here, from Vivek, Dr. Marcus, and me, Preeti Chaudhary. Take good care.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you, attendees.